Hello and welcome. It's time for French Politics here on France 24. I'm Mark Perlman.
And I'm Molly Hall. Coming up in this edition of The Political Brief, Emmanuel Macron's ruling party suffers its first electoral defeat. The conservative Republican Party comes out on top in Senate elections.
And is democracy decided on the streets or not? This has been the political question of the week here in France.
Plus, a major split on the far right. Marine Le Pen loses her political soulmate, but promises a bright future for her National Front party.
The honeymoon between Emmanuel Macron and the French people is over. That's according to the leader of the Conservative Party after the president's party suffered its first defeat at the ballot box.
That's right, the Republican Party coming out on top in last Sunday's senatorial elections. Ellen Gainsford has the story.
A disappointing result for Les Républicains en Marche in their first senatorial elections. The young party has failed to gain a majority. Instead, they'll be facing a strong opposition from the right-wing Les Républicains, who've increased their dominance in the upper house of the French parliament.
The Electoral College have consolidated the majority in the Senate. It's the voice of the people that's been expressed. They have clearly displayed a wish for a counterbalance in parliament.
With 159 senators, Les Républicains have a strong majority. While the right has gained in strength, the left-wing Socialist Party hung on to their place as the second largest party in the Senate, securing 69 seats. For left-wing Senator Marie-Noëlle Lienemann, the results are a message for Macron.
This is a severe warning, which confirms that the French people are getting fed up. The electors have expressed their unease at the deterioration of public services.
The biggest upset of the evening was for La République en Marche, with only 27 senators elected, far from the 60 seats they'd been hoping for. Despite the bad result, their leader in the Senate stayed doggedly positive.
I feel that new groups will form, maybe people that we can work with, and go forward with tomorrow. I think that if a government succeeds, personally, I think it will succeed. I think that Macron's majority could get bigger. We'll see when the constitutional reform is voted on, which path they will choose.
Le Front National failed to get any new senators, while Jean-Luc Mélenchon's far left, Les Insoumis, didn't put any candidates forward.
So that there, a look at the results of the senatorial election. And Mark, it has to be said that there's often less focus put on the Senate when compared to the National Assembly. So why then were these elections important?
Well, it's true, Molly. Generally, the Senate merely tweaks, amends, delays bills. However, the Senate is of paramount importance for Emmanuel Macron's project to rewrite the Constitution. For that, you need 3/5 of both chambers of parliament. And given Sunday's results, he clearly doesn't have those numbers in the Senate. So he has a choice. Either he forges such a 3/5 majority with other parties, or he can go to a referendum. But a referendum is essentially like rolling the dice. Sometimes the voters decide to punish the person asking the question rather than answering the question itself.
Indeed, that can be the case at times. Now, well, last week, the French president made his first appearance at the United Nations General Assembly in New York. And on the sidelines, he granted an interview to CNN, upon which he touched on a number of international issues.
He also addressed the ongoing protests against his labor reforms, saying, I'm quoting him, "Democracy did not come from the streets."
Well, during the far left's mass rally against the government's free market policies that took place last Saturday, leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon responded to the president.
We have now been told that democracy does not happen in the street. Mr. President, you'll need to take a look at French history to learn that it was the street that brought down kings. It was the street that brought down the Nazis.
Well, the Nazi reference that you heard there prompted furious reactions, not only from Macron supporters, but even from other leftist political and union leaders.
It's shocking. The Nazi regime was not brought down by people in the street, but by the Allies, by the Americans, and at one point by the Russians. If we know history, we can say that Nazism came into power because of people in the street. You should be careful when you speak.
Well, the government spokesman, Frédéric Castaner, also being very direct, saying via Twitter that when you equate Democrats and Republicans with Nazi filth, you are not worthy of wearing these colors. That he was referring to the blue, white and red of the French flag that Mélenchon was wearing when he spoke. Well, Jean-Luc, for his part, he denies all of this, writing in his blog, saying that it goes without saying that I never compared the current government to Nazis, and that if Castaner says so, well, it shows how low he can go.
And Jean-Luc Mélenchon is certainly not backing down, calling for even bigger protests on the streets.
The battle is not over yet. It is just starting. We are ready to follow the union's lead. But only in order to plan a large-scale action, like, for example, 1 million people demonstrating on the Champs-Élysées.
So then Jean-Luc Mélenchon calling for more protests, and despite the protests that we've seen over the past few weeks, it does appear that Emmanuel Macron's popularity is slightly on the mend. Now, if you'll remember, his ratings plunged 24% from June all the way through down to August. This as he dropped even lower than both François Hollande and Nicolas Sarkozy at the same point in their presidencies. Now, according to a poll taken last week, he's actually climbed 5 points to reach a current 45%.
Well, during his campaign, Emmanuel Macron ran on a decidedly pro-EU platform, promising to strengthen Eurozone institutions and deepen the bloc's integration. Now he's outlining his version for a stronger and more unified Europe right after elections in Germany, which have seen the rise of the far right.
We can't afford to be stuck in old ways with the same old policies, same words and same budget. All of us, we need to lead the way. That's what I want to say today. To ensure our future, we need to rebuild Europe into a sovereign, united and democratic Europe. All of us, we need to be brave and lead the way.
This week, the government is unveiling its first budget. It has also presented a €57 billion 5-year investment plan.
That's right, Mark, and with 4 key priority areas in green energy, professional training, boosting competitiveness, and modernizing the state. First, we'll see some €20 billion that's going to go to the green economy. That's going to help to have $9 billion of that go for making buildings more energy efficient and $7 billion for renewable energy development. Then we'll see €9 billion. This is going to go to public sector digitization. That'll include rolling out e-payments for more services and boosting telephone access to doctors to help patients in rural areas. Then we'll have $15 billion that's going to be set aside for training and education, and the government's going to try to tackle long-term unemployment by training 1 million people over the age of 25. This for new careers. Then we are going to see around €13 billion that's going to go to innovation. What does that mean? Well, it includes $5 billion for modernizing the agricultural sector and another $3.5 billion that's going to go to scientists. This including the development of artificial intelligence.
And here is how the Prime Minister, Édouard Philippe, explained the purpose of this ambitious plan.
It's a major investment plan that should allow us to help bring France's economy into the 21st century, transition towards a new model for growth, and shape the future of the next generation.
Well, now the soul-searching continues for France's far right. Marine Le Pen is trying to reassert her authority over her National Front party. This after her poor performance during this year's presidential election.
Last week saw a major split in the party with the departure of the vice president, Florian Philippot.
There's trouble in France's National Front party. The party's leaders, Marine Le Pen and Florian Philippot, will finally go their separate ways. Last Thursday, Florian Philippot made public his decision to leave the party.
I was demoted, and look, I don't appreciate being ridiculed, and I've never liked doing nothing, so of course I'm leaving the National Front Party. And I saw week after week that things were not going well. The rebranding attempt is not working, and quite frankly, it's really been a step backwards.
What do you mean by backwards?
It's failed to rid itself of its past demons.
Just moments later, Marine Le Pen downplayed the consequences of Philippot's departure.
We'll have no problem recovering from all this. Everyone who's decided to leave the party to go it alone, well, they've all gone now.
Philippot was held partially responsible for the National Front's unexpectedly low scores in May's presidential election. His push for France to leave the Eurozone was at the heart of the party's divisions. The position was unpopular both among party officials and its electorate. Philippot's growing tension with the party reached a climax a few months ago when he created his own faction, Les Patriotes. Accused of betraying the National Front, party officials pressured Marine Le Pen to force him to choose, and she eventually did so. The night of Philippot's departure, Le Pen wrote to National Front supporters to reassure them. She also appointed David Rachlin, mayor of a city in southern France, seen here, to the head of the party's communication wing. He will replace Florian Philippot.
That's all we have time for this week.
Indeed, we'll see you again next time right here on The Political Brief.
Inside the Americas, presented by Jeannie Godula.
From North America to the southern tip of Patagonia, join us for a look at the latest political, economic, cultural and social news from the Americas.
Inside the Americas on France 24 and France24.com.
My name is Jessica Saltz and I'm the Berlin correspondent for France 24. You can find my coverage of German news from here in the capital and beyond on France 24's news programmes and also online at France24.com.
Jessica Saltz, one of the 160 France 24 correspondents around the world.